Hello, I am Mrinalini and welcome to Never Before lecture series. These lecture series are powered by neverbefore.legal. These lecture series will be delivered by Senior Advocate S.M. Chandrasekhar. Senior Advocate S.M. Chandrasekhar has practiced over a period of 38 years, and during this time he has represented clients both before the Honorable Supreme Court of India and various other high courts. His major interests lie in the subject of constitutional law, company law, criminal law, service law and various other subject matters. In these lecture series, he will be addressing some of the most unique topics which the law fraternity has never heard before. To name a few: decriminalizing of section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act, constitutional torts, republic versus democracy, India is a republic, amendment, its process and evolution, two nations theory, reservation in elections is ultra vires of the constitution and the basic structure. Without any further ado, let us hear from the man himself.
We often say that India is a democratic nation. In my view, it is misconceived. According to me, India is a republic nation. In the previous lecture, we have discussed on the conceptual distinction between republic and democracy. In this lecture, we will discuss the characteristics of a republican nation and its erosion of Indian Republic. The history of India prior to the promulgation of our constitution has perhaps not been parallel in its essential features of any other country. The compulsion of our past, the Indian freedom struggle, dictated that the nature of the state, right of a citizen, type of governance should be guaranteed by the constitution. The basic freedom of people needed a constitutional force to fight against onslaught of majority rule of power, hunger people. In addition, the century was being welded together in one association, freedom movement. People of all diversities needed a sense of security. These aspects made imperative to our framers of Indian constitution to go for a written and defined constitution, creating a balance of power right between the people and the government. The constitution makers vested the solemn power and sovereignty in the hands of people by assuring to them a republic form of government by states. We, the people of India, give to ourselves nothing in body of the government. Thus, it was a pledge to our people. If you are rewind the constitution evolution, people of India having struggled and fought for freedom over a period of time against the British colonial rule and the rule of monarch, this cherished dream of independence for life and liberty with the human dignity. The Constituent Assembly, being inspired by people wishes, aligned towards the principle laid down by the United Nations Charter. The original objective resolution, which was eventually adopted as our preamble, was proposed and passed with the word independent sovereign republic. The term democracy was eventually added to the preamble. The members of the Constituent Assembly were conscious of the republican form of governance, where people are supreme and not the parliament. If there was to be a parliamentary sovereignty like other nations, the people would have given onto themselves a written constitution. The word democracy in preamble has led to the anomalous position, often confused and overlapping in understanding the mode of governance of the nation. Eventually, the working of constitution and the decision making process has prejudicially affected. A glance of the Mammoth Constitution exhibits that its author were radically republican thought, at least for their time, believing that only legitimate form of government was one which public had the authority, where the power is derived entirely from the people. Although the difference between democracy and republic is easily overlooked, our system is republican in that the founders understood that public is the only legitimate sovereign of the government. It is not wholly democratic. A constitution makers feared the abuse of the authority by the majority. They therefore designed the instrument of the government intended to keep temporary, imprudent and temperate outburst of public opinion from dominating the body of politics. Their primary method of doing this was having a written constitution. List of fundamental rights in part 3 of the constitution and an independent judiciary which is provided a foolproof system of check and balance, thereby lowering the risk posed by the pure democracy or a majoritarian rule. The Indian Constituent Assembly concisely adopted a republican form of government as a consequence of fundamental right find its place in part 3 of the constitution with a strong and independent judiciary. The epicenter of all chaos and confusion which has arisen in our understanding in the form the preamble of the constitution which finds a place of the term democracy along with the word republic. A misposition of the word democracy in the preamble, which is nothing but a weaker form of republic, has pushed our polity into a chaotic belief that we are democracy and majoritarian government is the republic form of governance. In fact, the word democracy does not fit into the original ethos laid out by our constitution makers while framing the constitution. The right question which remains undermined on to this day, whether India is governed by doctrine of republicanism. If that be the case, then the Honorable Supreme Court could have declared that the elected representatives are not authorized to amend the natural, basic, original, fundamental features contained in part 3 of the constitution. Somehow, citizens of Republic of India adopted the idea that we are democracy, and the recent menace of amendment made me rethink, do we continue to be a republican or we have transformed into a democracy ruled by a majoritarian government. A school of thought who advocates that India is a democratic nation is irrational, illogical, misconceived. By a bare reading of a fundamental document or the law of the land established that India is governed by principles of republic, not of a democracy, for the following reason. The history of India prior to the promulgation of the constitution has perhaps not been parallel in its essential feature in any other country. The compulsion of history dictated that the nature of the state, right of a citizen, type of the governance should be guaranteed by the constitution as the freedom and liberty yet not been bred to the bones of the people. So, the basic freedom needed a constitutional force to fight against the onslaught of majority rule of our hunger people. While the country was being welded together in one republic, it promised the people all diversities a sense of security. These aspects made it imperative to our framers to go for a written and defined constitution to create a balance of power rights. They vested solemn power and sovereignty in the hands of the people. We, the people of India, give unto themselves and not in the body of government. Therefore, it is a pledge to our people. It was not meant for the rulers, but for the ruled. The Constituent Assembly proposed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was passed before the India was partitioned. The objective resolution was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on January 22nd, 1947. The original objective resolution was proposed and passed with the word independent sovereign republic. This political decision cannot be altered or diluted. The term democracy was an eventual addition to the preamble. It has understood in a limited sense to hold that the people elect their representatives to constitute legislature body, nothing more than this. Members of a constituent assembly were conscious of a republican form of governance where people are supreme and not the parliament. If there was to be a parliamentary sovereignty like that of a Great Britain, the people would have given unto themselves a written constitution. The preamble of our constitution as existed prior to and subsequent to the 42nd amendment is extracted hereunder. We, the people of India, having solemnly to constitute India into a sovereign, socialistic, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens. The evolution and the process of adopting the preamble has been narrated in the case of Keshavananda Bharati versus Union of India, paragraph 83 and 84 of the said judgment. On the contrary, preamble of our constitution states that Union of India is both republic and democracy, which has often confused the common mass and educated, has led to an anomalous situation. This jarring issue is a bone of content not only in the matter of governance, but also in the matter of applying the basic rules made by virtue of majority. If India was a democracy, then it would not have been embraced an individual concept of sovereignty. We the people, on and to themselves, fundamental right, in which each and every one of us is a sovereign, and the original objective resolution of the constitution opposed the parliamentary sovereignty, as in Great Britain chose to follow people or popular sovereignty. The Constitution of India guarantee the natural right essential for upliftment of human right and dignity. In part 3, the natural right enumerated. The purpose of such enumeration is no more than a fail-safe to prevent tyranny of majority. The framers also vested the Supreme Court with the power to declare the law and to quash an unconstitutional any law or order transgress any fundamental right, a power otherwise known as judicial review. Significantly, access to the apex court to issue writs enforcing fundamental right is itself a fundamental right under Article 32 of the Constitution. These rights are negative compulsion against the majority compulsion to prevent majorities from behaving as a faction, and the Constitution imposes structural limit on the government through device such as fundamental rights, federalism, etc. Therefore, the basic principles of rule of law is a republican form of government is reflected in the fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, Article 19 and Article 21 of the Constitution of India. The fundamental rights in Part 3 of the Constitution are inalienable and inherent, which is vested in the people who gave on to themselves a set of basic principles with which they are governed by adopting the Constitution. The same cannot be abrogated by the act of the state. The fundamental rights are the hallmark of republican form of government, whereas in the democratic form of governance, it is the rule of majority. A rule by men is always swayed by the likes and dislikes of the majority. Many a times, power in the hands of few would appease a group of persons for affiliation without mindful or regard to the right and privileges of another section of the society. Even the legendary Nani Palkiwala in his book Constitution Defied and Defaced writes on the distinct source of liberty in India and in Britain, evidencing on the fact that it is the people who possess the power. In both the countries, Constitution represents the charter of power granted by liberty and not the charter of liberty granted by the power. Liberty is not the gift of the state to the people, it is the people enjoying the liberty as a citizen of free republic who have granted the power to the legislature and the executive. By contrast, in England, freedom is the result of charter of liberty granted by power. Over the centuries, liberty has been wrested from the kings by charter like Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights, apart from the judicial pronouncement by judges of courage and sturdy independence. The most significant feature of both the Constitution is the assent on the basic human freedom. India has the fundamental right, the United States has its Bill of Rights. A perusal of Indian Constitution, one can understand that the scheme of Indian Republic is of a popular sovereignty and the institution of governance of the state are democratically constituted or elected. The representatives of the people in India, as per the part 15 of the Constitution, are elected in a democratic process by a single franchise to constitute the parliament and the state legislature. These institutions, that is parliament and state legislature, are required to govern the nation and the state in accordance with the substantive right, that is fundamental right, and directs the state to make law in accordance with the policies enumerated in part 4 of the Constitution of India. Indian state represents contemporary approach in constitutionalizing the doctrine of separation of power. The Constitution of India embraces the idea of separation of power in an implied manner, despite there being an express provision recognizing the doctrine of separation of power in its absolute form. The Constitution does make a provision for reasonable separation of functions and powers between the three organs of the government. By looking into the various provisions of the Constitution, it is evident that the Constitution intends that the power of the legislation shall be exercised exclusively by the legislature. Similarly, judicial power can be said to be vested with the judiciary. The judiciary is an independent in its field, and there can be no interference in the judicial function either by the executive or by the legislature. Also, the executive power of the union and the state are vested in the president and the governor respectively. The Constitution of India lays down a functional separation of organs of the state in the following manner. Article 50 states shall take steps to separate the judiciary from executive. This is for the purpose of ensuring independence of judiciary. Article 122 and 212, validity of the proceedings in a parliament and the legislature cannot be called in question in any court. This ensures the separation and immunity of the legislature from judicial intervention on the allegation of procedural irregularity. Judicial conduct of judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court cannot be discussed in the parliament and the state legislature according to Article 121 and 211 of the Constitution. Article 53 and 154 respectively provide that the executive power of the union and the state shall vest with the president and the governor. They enjoy the immunity from civil and criminal liability. Article 361, the president or the governor shall not be answerable to any court for exercise and performance of their power duties in the office. The reference Delhi Law Act case, it is for the first time observed by the Supreme Court that except where the Constitution has vested power in a body, the principle that one organ should not perform the function that essentially belongs to the other is followed in India. By a majority of 5:2, the court held that the theory of separation of power, though not part and parcel of our Constitution, in exceptional circumstances evident in the provisions of the Constitution itself as observed by Kenya Chief Justice. Although in the Constitution of India there is no express separation of power, it is clear that the legislature is created by the Constitution and detailed provisions are made for making any legislature pass law. Does it not imply that unless it can be gathered from our provisions of the Constitution, other bodies, executive or judiciary, are not intended to discharge the legislative function? In essence, this judgment implied that all the three organs of the state, the legislature, judiciary and the executive, are bound and subject to the provisions of the Constitution, which demarcates their respective power, jurisdiction, responsibility, relationship with one another, and also that it can be assumed that none of the organs of the state, including the judiciary, would exceed in its power as laid down in the Constitution. In I.R. Coelho case, Supreme Court, following the doctrine of basic structure as propounded in Keshavananda Bharati case, said that 9th schedule is violative of doctrine of judicial review, and hence 9th schedule was made amenable to the judicial review, which also forms part of basic structure theory. It was observed the Constitution begins into existence different constitutional entity, namely the union, the state and the union territory. It creates three major instruments of power, namely legislature, executive and judiciary. It demarcates their jurisdiction minutely and expects them to exercise their respective power without overstepping their limits. They should function within the sphere allotted to them. Thus, there is proper compartmentalization of functions of different organs of the government. The power of judicial review, fundamental right, federal structure, election suffrage, representative government and other set of check and balance have been placed, which reflects pure republic. At the time of framing the Constitution, every activity of the legislature, executive and judiciary have been demarcated in the Constitution. Further, the Constitution of India expressly provides for a system of check and balance in order to prevent the arbitrary and capricious use of the power derived from the said supreme document. Though such a system appears dilatory of the doctrine of separation of power, it is essential in order to enable the just and equitable function of such constitutional system. The concept of constitutional check arose as an outgrowth of classical theory of separation of power. The purpose of this and the later development and check and balance was to ensure that the government power would not be used in an abusive manner, to prevent one branch from becoming the supreme, protect the minority from the majority, and to induce branches to cooperate. Government system that employ a separation of power need a way of balance each of the branches. Typically, this was accomplished through the system of check and balance, the origin of which, like a separation of power itself, is specifically credited to Montesquieu. Under the system of check and balance, one department is given certain powers by which it may definitely restrain the other from exceeding constitutional authority. It may object or resist any encroachment upon its authority, or it may question, if necessary, any acts or acts which lawfully interferes with the separation of jurisdiction of the authority. Indian Constitution provides for a scheme of check and balance between the three organs of the government, namely the legislature, executive and the judiciary, against any potential abuse of power. For example, the judge of a Supreme Court and the High Court in the state are appointed by the executive, that is the President acting on the advice of Prime Minister and the Chief Justice of Supreme Court, but they may be removed from the office only if they are impeached by a parliament. This measure helps the judiciary to function without any fear of executive. Similarly, the executive is responsible for parliament in its day-to-day function, while the President appoints the leader of the majority party or a person who is believed command a majority in the Lok Sabha, House of the People or the lower house. At the government is duty bound to lay down power if the House adopts a motion expressing no confidence in the government. Similarly, the judiciary keeps a check on the laws made by the parliament, action taken by the executive, either they conform to the constitution or not, using the tool of judicial review. Thus, by giving such a power, a mechanism for the control over the exercise of constitutional power, the respective organs is established. This clearly indicates that Indian Constitution in its plan does not provide for a strict separation of power. Instead, it creates a system consisting of three organs, government, and confers upon them both exclusive and overlapping powers and function. This reflection that the true nature of republic, and it cannot be said that India is governed by democratic. It ensures that rule of law and realization of human right, and also the prosperity and stability of a society. The independence of judiciary is normally assured through a constitution, but it may also be assured through a legislation, convention and other suitable form and practice. The constitutional makers believe that the free society could be created through the guarantee of fundamental rights and independent judiciary to guard and enforce those rights. Therefore, the framers of Indian Constitution dealt with these two aspects with a maximum and identical idealism. The most of the important aspect in the independence of judiciary is the Indian Constitution, its constitutional position. Just as the Constitution provides for composition and power of executive and the legislature, it provides for judiciary. The Constitution provides for composition of the court and their jurisdiction, tenure of the judges and the appointment, terms of office and tenure of the judges. The Constitution ensures a constitutional position of dignity to the judiciary. The Constitution also ensures administrative independence of judiciary, such as supervision, control over the administrative staff, preparation of its budget and maintenance of the court's building. The Constitution assumes judicial review of a legislative and executive acts. Therefore, from the initial litigation soon after the commencement of the Constitution, the court started exercising it without anybody's entertaining any doubt in its regard. The independence of the judiciary, judicial review have been held part of the basic structure and basic feature of the Indian Constitution, and therefore, the amendments which directly or even indirectly take away these features have been invalidated by the court. The court has also invalidated a constitutional amendment which subjected the decision of the tribunal, which are not a court in the strict sense, to confirm or reject by the government. Similarly, in case of Kaveri river water dispute, the court has invalidated laws merely abrogating the judicial decision without retrospectively changing the legal basis of that decision. Some of the constitutional provisions that imply the independence of judiciary are as follows. Article 144 of the Constitution declares that all authorities, civil or judicial, shall come to the aid of the Supreme Court, and Article 141 is to the effect that law declared by the Supreme Court is binding on all courts within the territory of India. Article 129 and 142(2) expressly confers the power of contempt on the Supreme Court of India. Article 215 correspondingly confers such power on the High Court of the country. This history has shown in the most of the potent weapon in the hands of the Supreme Court to compel the obedience of its will. In any event, the governance of the nation and the state is not on democratic norms. It is merely the mode of constitution of the bodies which is democratic. Therefore, India is a republican state with the democratic institution. It would be misnomer to call India a democratic country. It would be a dangerous position if the nation is governed on the doctrine of democracy, in which a nation would be in the hands of a group of persons headed by a leader. Under unfortunate circumstances, the leader may turn out to be an anarchist. As mentioned earlier, Indian founding father from the very early days of freedom struggle consciously decided to mold free India along with the lines of republic. Therefore, when an independence of India became imminent, they chose to place their faith in the Constituent Assembly to formulate a constitution that institutionalized their political victory. The constitution commencement in 1950 therefore heralded a new constitutional dawn into which the republic was launched, an era of political freedom free from the exploitation and judicial, social, economical, political to the improvised and illiterate mass. In republican India, democratic manner of election has found a hospitable soil. Electoral legitimacy has been a fundamental requirement for a political survival. The Indian army has remained apolitical, and the judiciary has of late came to exercise its constitutional power with vigor and assurance. While there are heartening features of Indian polity, they constitute only a part of the story of constitutionalism in India. However, the constitution in a sense of supreme law of the land as settled consensus accepted by the shades of political opinion is not yet entrenched in the Indian political legal soil. Keshavananda Bharati, which was a significant landmark history of Indian constitutionalism, for it was that case that the Supreme Court reaffirmed the supremacy of the constitution vis-a-vis the parliament and executive. Essentially, what the court did was to repudiate parliament's assertion of sovereign power to make changes not only in the constitution but also in the constitution. No party in power could use the legislative majorities to abuse the constitutional process to convert a republican India into a hereditary monarchy or a secular India into a theoretical state or a federal India into a unitary state, an Indian with citizens into an Indian consisting only of subjects. The court reiterated the principle of constitutional supremacy by articulating the doctrine of constitutional basic structure. The court placed high ground and beyond the reach of a parliament's power of amendment the constitutional cardinal features such as judicial review, rule of law, democracy and secularism. Thus, republicanism is not the same as democracy. Republicanism is a way of life, whereas the democracy is the way of government. Republicanism includes guarantee of right that cannot be repealed by a majority vote. A nation which is a democracy, the democratic institution would act in a manner prejudiced to the interest of people, as the laws will be made to serve the interest of the said group of people in the power, and the rule of law would take a back seat. Thus, Constituent Assembly never intended to govern the nation on a democratic principle. The majority rule, on the other hand, the objective resolution, the adoption of the constitution clearly explicit term retain the governance of the nation as a sovereign republic, meaning thereby the people are supreme and the rule of law framed by them would govern them and not by a majority. Governance in hands of few. Thus, unlike Britain, India has people sovereignty, not a parliamentary sovereignty. Democracy is merely a mode of constitution of legislative institution bodies, cannot be considered as a form of governance. It would be in fact demeaning to identify ourselves as democracy, which is degeneration of republic state. This scheme of the constitution indicate that India is governed by doctrine of republic and rule of law.
Thanks for watching today's lecture. You will find the text script of the video lecture in the description box below. If you like a content, press a thumbs up, comment and subscribe to our channel, or log on to our official website www.neverbefore.legal and share your thoughts. We would love to hear from you. Please press the bell icon and watch out for our next lecture.